Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Aubrey Taylor, and I am presenting our next maternal mental health session over balancing motherhood and personal identity. So, I am a MSW student. I am also a mother of a 2-year-old and a 3-year-old. I am interning with Cameron County Mental Health Task Force, and I originally fell in love with the topic of maternal mental health when I became pregnant with my daughter and my son. Ever since then, I've always wanted to support mothers, and so here I am today. So, the mission of the Cameron County Mental Health Task Force is to enhance community awareness and dedication and resources to address behavioral requirements of Texas residents. And the purpose of this session is more of a group focus, and the goal is to provide a safe and supportive space to talk about maternal mental health and help build tools for your well-being. I do want to share a short confidentiality statement for those of you who are participating with me today. So I want to let you know that what's shared here stays here, with just one exception. If I learn that someone may harm themselves or others, I am required to take action and ensure safety. Other than that, this is a private and respectful space, and this is a space for you to be able to express yourself, and share your truth. So, I want to say hello and welcome back to my maternal mental health series. I'm so glad that you decided to show up for yourself today. This session is very important to me because we're going to talk about something that many of us as mothers struggle with, but we don't always have the space to say it out loud. And so, the topic is um, how becoming a mother changes who we are and how we reconnect with ourselves again. And so I want to let you know that you're more than what you do for others. So today I invite you to reflect on your identity and your dreams and your values. So first, we're going to talk about shifting roles and expectations. Um, so as mothers, once we step into motherhood, I think we often feel like we can't be our own person again. We feel like our lives are surrounded around our children, or maybe our lives are surrounded around our significant others, and so we lose a sense of ourselves. And so I want to discuss these few teaching points to figure out how we can shift those roles and those expectations to where we're pouring more into ourselves and regaining our own identity again. So the first one is that motherhood often causes a shift in identity. We begin prioritizing our children, but sometimes we lose touch with ourselves in the process. Um, and I think this is based off of how maybe we were taught. We were taught that once you have children, your life is no longer yours, but that is definitely not the truth. Because at the end of the day, you have to be able to be okay yourself. You have to be able to be your own person and know who you are in order to continue to serve others and support others. And so there's a lot of pressure on mothers to be able to do it all. And this can leave us feeling like we're not enough, even when we are giving our all. And I've definitely felt like this before, especially after having my second child. I was in the middle of my teaching career. I was breastfeeding, um, and I knew that I wanted to transition into a new career, but I just didn't know when I was going to have the time, especially being a mom of two, a brand new mom of two at that. And so I began feeling like I wasn't enough, even though I was doing all of the things. And so that is when I had to kind of stop and take a second and identify what my roles were and what my expectations were for myself. And so we carry a lot of external expectations from our family, from culture, and from society. But those expectations don't always match what we want for ourselves, what our desires and our values are for ourselves. And so I encourage you to kind of take a step back and try to figure out who were you before you became a mother, um, and who are you in this new transition in life as being a mother, because we're definitely not the same when we have children. And so I want to share just a piece of research with you. So Arnold Barker describes maternal identity as a process of becoming. It's not just about taking on a new role, it's about integrating who we are or who we were before we who we are now. And so um, being a mother does change you, but it's not a bad change. It just becoming a mother definitely reveals things, new things about ourselves, and so um, the important thing is for us to just dive into identifying who that new version of ourselves is. So next, I want to talk about balancing personal goals with motherhood. So some strategies to maybe start balancing your personal goals or to set boundaries around your time without guilt. Um, I think when it comes to thinking about when we're gonna have time to take care of ourselves, um, we're always thinking about others before our own selves. And so um, when we pick out that time for self-care, it is very important to communicate that and to make sure we're setting those boundaries. Um, because I think that with guilt, it's always going to be a thing. But once you get into the practice of setting boundaries and making sure that you're being intentional about your self-care, that guilt will eventually kind of fade away. Another strategy would be to communicate your needs with your partner, your family, or your support system. Communication is so important. Um, and I think communication is definitely something that has to be practiced. It's not something that is going to be perfect the first or second time around. Um, Communicating can be difficult, especially when we are thinking that we should be able to handle everything, and when we're thinking that people should be able to read our minds. But unfortunately, that is not something that humans can do. And so once we're able to communicate our needs, especially with our partner, family, or support system, then we can begin to focus more on ourselves and focus on our personal goals. Our next strategy is to make time for your passions. So even if it's just 10 minutes of you time, and that can recharge your spirit. So for an example, one of my passions was journaling, expressing myself in writing. I used to do it a lot. I used to do it so much to the point where I would turn my writing into poetry, and it really helped kind of cope with what I was going through at that time. But when I became a mother, and I gained all these new responsibilities, it became hard for me to continue on with that passion. And so, unfortunately, I did stop at one point in time. But now that I am a little further on into motherhood, not too far, um, I think that now that my 2 and 3-year-old are becoming a little bit more independent, I'm more intentional about when I feel like I need to make time for my passions. And so, making time for your passion is definitely an important part of finding who you are again. And lastly, a most important strategy is letting go of being perfect. Um, I think that that expectations that we need to be perfect is oftentimes what keeps our load heavy. Um, it kind of allows us to lose sight of being our authentic self. And so reaching for perfection is not something that will keep you going in the long run. I think we need to reach for authenticity, um, and knowing that your best is enough. And so I want to ask you this question, and you can take a moment to pause this video and answer. But I want you to think about one personal goal that you feel like you've put on hold since becoming a mom. And I also want you to think about what's one small step you could take toward reaching that personal goal this week. Um, just sharing some personal things about me. Um, I discussed how I wanted to go back to graduate school to get my degree to become a therapist. And so that is something that I put on hold for a very long time. When I was pregnant with my daughter back in 2020, I did take a class to become a school social worker or a school counselor. And for some reason, the thought of transitioning into motherhood and the thought of being a teacher and the thought of being a grad student like overwhelmed me. And so that fear and that those thoughts of how am I going to do all of this are what initially stopped me from reaching my personal goals. And so um, it wasn't until I had my son and until I became so unfulfilled in life that I finally decided to um, go to counseling, and I started to figure out what I needed to do to be okay for me and to be okay for my children and my family. And so I encourage you to identify what your personal goal was or is, and see what you can do to work towards achieving that goal. Um, and then I want you to make note of how you're feeling and make note of the person that you are now versus the person that you used to be. Um, Maybe your goals have changed and that is okay. Um, but I think figuring out how maybe you can transform that goal to meet who you are today, is very helpful. So I want to share some more pieces of research when it comes to maternal identity and well-being. Um, so again, with Arnold Barker, maternity identity is a process of becoming. It is not a fixed role, but it's an ongoing integration of who we are before motherhood with who we are now. The next piece of research I want to share is with Cox. Um, a key insight from his research was showing that young African American mothers use storytelling and cultural reflection to find meaning in motherhood, often reshaping their identity and life goals in the process. I think that storytelling, being able to tell our story and being able to reflect on our culture and what it means to be a mother is so important. Because I think oftentimes, a lot of the cultural and the societal expectations that we put on ourselves may not always fit who we are in that present moment. And so, being able to tell your own story and reflect and reshape identity and your life goals is so important, not only for African American women, but for all people of color. And lastly, I have research from Kettner. Um, and the research found that parenting does not necessarily get easier with experience. Um, Even returning parents need structured emotional support after the birth of a new baby. Um, Motherhood or parenthood in general, um, is is a learning process at every stage in your child's life, at every stage in your life. And so instead of wishing things to be easier, I think it's important to find ways to manage who we are and manage our children, and be the best person that we can be so that we can be ready for every phase of life. Um, and it doesn't become easier. I think it just becomes more manageable over time. And so I encourage you to use these pieces of research to take these research findings into your own practice of maintaining your identity or finding who you are again. So I want to share this activity with you. You can either do the vision board or you can do a journaling activity, but I'll discuss both options. These activities are really special and really important to help you kind of begin to um, figure out who you are again. And so option A is a vision board. And you have the option to include images, words, or symbols that represent your personal identity beyond motherhood. And so I want you to focus on balance and not perfection. And so with this activity, um, a good thing for you to do would be to look at who you are or who you were before you became a mother. Um, and then I want you to look at you know, what you enjoy doing now that you are a mother, but make sure that the things that you are identifying are beyond just your role of a mother. And so I have a vision board activity for you. So find some magazines, find some butcher paper, some printer paper. You can even do a digital vision board, but I find creative activities, especially when it comes to expressing yourself again, um, really sparks that inner child. So option B would be journaling prompts. And so some journaling prompts that you can answer, you can just write this down in your journal, or if you enjoy using your phone in the notes section, you can do that as well. I want you to answer, who am I beyond being a mother? And then I want you to answer, what brings me joy outside of motherhood? And lastly, I want you to journal about what's one thing that you want to reclaim or explore about yourself. And so these journaling prompts help you focus on who you are right now, um, who you used to be, and what you feel like keeps you focused and centered in who you are, in the present moment. So some takeaways are a who am I beyond being a mother worksheet. So I created a journaling worksheet you can use throughout the week. It includes reflection prompts and a space to write down goals or values that you want to reconnect with. It's going to include reflection questions, weekly self-care goal section, and a space for your identity and values check-in. So I want you to remember that you are a whole person. Outside of motherhood, outside being a partner, you are your own whole person. And your identity does not disappear because you are a mother. Okay. So this is your reminder to make space for your dreams again, because you are important. Um, and I think that remembering who you are is what's going to keep you going. It's when it's going to keep you healthy on all levels. And lastly, I want to give you the option of meeting with me individually to support you via Zoom. You can use this email to reach me. But I think this is a good opportunity to meet with me one-on-one in case you're not so comfortable meeting in a group setting, or if you're not comfortable speaking via social media. Meeting with me one-on-one will give you the opportunity to maybe just gain some tools or some education or support and figuring out how you can best um, put these tools into practice. And so I just want to I just want to say thank you for showing up for yourself today. Uh, I hope that you found this presentation helpful. Next week, we're going to talk about how to build and maintain a support system, because motherhood is not meant to be done in isolation. I think when it comes to being a mother, it definitely takes a village. And so I'm excited to discuss that topic with you next week. And so, one reflection that I want to end with is thinking about what's one small thing you're committing to doing for yourself this week. Thank you again for showing up for yourself today. Have a good day.